afternoon. Hi, Brian. Hey, folks. Welcome aboard. Facebook's getting busy. Afternoon, gentlemen. You might have stressed that a bit further, Russ. Hey, Alex. Right, you killed Anthony David. I think there's enough of them on board now.
Right.
Good afternoon, folks. I hope you enjoyed the annoying noise. It was just for use. Anyway, welcome to Two Davies Show. Say good afternoon, David.
Good afternoon, David.
Thank you. Right, folks, we're going to get the show underway by explaining trustonomics, or trickle-down economics. Would you like to take the floor, or would you like me to start?
No, you start. You start. Yeah, you've got a good rant on that one.
Well, when it comes to the idea of trickle-down economics, it is possible for it to work, but first you have to have a buoyant market for it to work. And the idea is that you give more money to the wealth creators than what you give to the wealth makers. Now, what do we mean by wealth creator and wealth maker? Well, the wealth creator is a guy who has the idea, builds a factory, and employs the people. The people are the wealth makers. Now, in a buoyant market, there's every chance that that might have an impact. But as we don't have a buoyant market, then the notion of cutting taxes for the rich, while saying get it up, ye wealth makers, then we've got problems in our hands. So trickle-down economics, to put it quite simply, although it is a wee bit more involved, but to simplify it, the idea is that the top 10% are the people that own the factories, run industry, that sort of thing. So if you give them more money, they can invest in their businesses, and they can grow their businesses, and they can then pay their employees a bigger share of the profits. Problem is, of course, we are in an economic downturn. We have a shrinking market, and therefore there is nobody to sell to. So giving money to the wealth creators rather than the wealth makers at this point in time doesn't work. If you give money to the wealth makers at this point in time, they will spend it in the businesses of the wealth creators, and you would have a chance of prosperity.
Okay, there's one other thing on that, right? If you go too far the other way, which is that you tax the wealth creators too much, you would revert to a situation we had in the 1960s, which was called the brain drain. And they actually had a tax, if you like, where over a certain level, people paid 19 shillings and sixpence out of every pound. That's sixpence short of that. They get sixpence out of their wages out of every pound that they made, right? And that created the brain drain. It was bloody stupid. It really was. It was Labour at the time, Harold Wilson, you name it, and these guys really didn't have their hand on the throttle whatsoever, right? So consequently, you had people they had an ability to make money, but they were being penalised to such a heavy extent that they went, can't do it here, and a lot of them went to America, right, or wherever else. So there is there's a balance. But I figure, you know, if you've got somebody that makes over 150 grand and you even tax them 50% over a certain level, then, you know, they're still able to make good money at that, right? Which is more sensible. Start taking it down to 45, it's still, you're giving them a lot more at that. Then down to 40, you're giving an awful lot more. And obviously, if you're earning much more than 150 grand, well, you saw where it was. Or somebody making £1 million would make 55,000, or would retain an extra 55,000 pounds. You know, so, and that is, somebody said that's what you would pay a nurse, if you're a nurse on a decent level, that is, within the NHS. So have to remember that this thing of a government doing taxation, you've got to try and balance it. You've got to get it at a level whereby people are prepared to stay and pay in. But also we need more education on people and more, if you like, better morals, and people realising what tax is for and what it does and why we all pay in. We pay in for, effectively, a social state. We've got a health service, we've got the social services, we've got benefits. If somebody falls out of the situation, they end up with no job, they've at least got something. It's ridiculously low in this country, it really is, but nonetheless, there it is. So I'll leave the rest to you, David. Carry on from that if you can.
I'm going to give you a bit of interaction here on this bit before we move on, right? Watch the vlog from the London taxi driver, me and Mark, Junkie Mark McGowan, and Trust came to power. UK lost $500 billion, $1 billion an hour since the Prime Minister. There's a reason for that, and we'll get to that a wee bit further in. And the other one I'm going to throw up here is Alpha Party now demanding pensions and benefits to rise to keep with inflation. All very admirable. There's two of them in Westminster. All they're doing is making a fucking noise.
Yeah.
Simple as that. No disrespect to the Alpha Party. I know you people out there think I don't like the Alpha Party, but you've got to remember, I'm a political realist. I know how long it takes for a new party to actually make any traction and get into the public consciousness.
Yeah.
And the Alpha Party, they can check. I'll check back with them in 50 years. But let's get back to what we're talking about here. The idea of giving more to the wealth creator, the wealth maker, the wealth the wealth creator, than what you get to the wealth maker. Now, if we have a look at let's talk about Portugal and the 2008 crash, when everybody bailed in and bailed the banks out. What did Portugal do?
Basically, it was maybe a few steps down from what Iceland did. I actually admired the Iceland situation. They jailed all the bankers and jailed the politicians, and then they gave everybody half their mortgage back. There you go. How's about that?
Aye, but Portugal, what they did was they gave the money to the people and not the banks.
You feed it in.
That meant the money could be spent. That meant the money could be spent in the marketplace, because the people, well, you know, they spend all their vote in the marketplace, whether they're buying food, clothes, transport.
And your so-called wealth creator, they actually get trickle up. That's what it works properly, because as people are spending and buying the shit that they make, they're making more money.
That's right.
So therefore, what we should be doing is we should be looking at trickle up economics.
Right, but we're looking at trickle down. And to move on to our second subject, why is it the markets were jittery about what Liz Truss and Curtin did, and why is it that the markets in the pound tanked?
Well, it's really, we were talking. Hi guys, we were talking about this earlier on, right? And any market, any dealer in the marketplace is looking for stability. When any marketplace gets unstable, people tend to shy away from it. Hang on, am I going to put money in this and it's going to go pop, right? So therefore, obviously, the markets are going to be jittery in a situation like that, especially when they see things like gilts that we'll talk about later on, and the pound plummeting. And it's not a good look.
Well, let's get a wee bit more technical on that. Why is the City of London crapping itself at the situation we're in? And what was that budget actually? It was a Brexit budget. You and I know that.
Yeah.
Now,
Purely and simply, the first thing was the cap, the getting rid of the cap, was try and bring people back into the City of London and get them to do their magic, right? But to be honest with you, people in London are people like that in London are getting a bit pissed off with it all. They can't sell to the people of Europe. The doors are closed.
you get getting to the point. And the point is, the reason why the City of London is crapping itself is even removing the banker's bonus cap.
Yeah.
Banks are now fleeing back into London for one specific reason only. The size of the UK marketplace now.
That's right.
And why is the City of London crapping itself? Well, its market's been reduced. And because its market's been reduced, let's take the rest of the world out of the scene, because although they deal in other places in the world, the City of London, all these places have got their own financial centres that do the bulk of the work. New York, Washington, Rome, Paris, Frankfurt, Singapore, Hong Kong. They've all got their own big financial sectors. So London at this point in time is at over half its customers ripped away from it. And that means that their primary subjects are the primary customers are the 65 million in these islands. And with inflation high, interest rates high, they are withdrawing lending services because they've got to protect their institutions. So,
now, if you look at that, David, if you look at that from a really practical outlook, right? For example, you might have somewhere like Morgan Stanley, for example, right? They've got banks, trading houses all over the world, right? And what they'll do is that eventually what will happen is the board will start to look at the UK and they'll go, well, that one's doing fine, that one's doing, London's crap. And eventually what they'll do is they'll just go, right, forget it. Well, got that. So then Morgan Stanley's gone from London. Do you get it? Do you get what that means eventually to London as a financial centre?
Yeah, it's done really, because its market now, with the equivalence into the EU's been half. Its primary market is here in the UK. We have a rampant inflation, a rise in interest rates, and a shrinking economy, a shrinking market to sell into. So, as we know, SMEs are the bulk of the UK economy.
Small and medium
enterprises, sorry. But at interest rates at the height they're at, and the height they're projected to get to, SMEs are no borrowing money to grow businesses. They're not going to be going into research and development to grow their companies, and they're certainly not going to be hiring more employees because of the contraction. So we wonder why the City was jittery about what Truss and Kertang did, when actually they were supposedly giving more money to the wealth creators so that the wealth makers could benefit. The reason why it doesn't work is because the UK has a service economy. It doesn't, or England has a service economy. It doesn't have a diverse economy. And England's service economy serviced basically Europe. And we're not in Europe anymore.
Yeah.
So that's why the City isn't lending. Apart from that, the people are no borrowing. And that's why what Kertang and Truss did won't work. It might have stood a chance of working, although it never has, over my lifetime. And buoyant economies, and buoyant markets, but it certainly won't work in this one. Especially as we have a service economy. You give more money to the people at the top, they stick it in the Cayman Islands. They don't reinvest it.
Well, also the other thing is that if you imagine, if you look at the wealth makers, right, they've got to have somewhere to live. Now, back in Maggie's day, she made it whereby everybody got a mortgage and bought a house, or they bought their council house, or whatever, right? We've had over the weekend 930 mortgage profits removed from the marketplace, right? Now, if you're at the end of your maybe fixed term mortgage and you go looking for another one, right? According to Martin Lewis, you'll still find products out there offering like 2 years fixed in, or the rest of the higher cost, obviously, right? But what he said, the majority of people would fail on is on the affordability check now. So you go for a mortgage, the first thing they do is an affordability check. They go, right, what's your gas? What's your electricity? What you paying for fuel for your car? Straight away, you're in a hiding of nothing. You really are a hiding of nothing, because you are paying so much more now than you were then. So a lot of people would fail at that first hurdle, which is the affordability check on a mortgage.
That's the other thing, David. We don't know what the cost of living crisis is going to do. It's still escalating.
That's right.
So at this point in time, there's an awful lot of people out there would feel it. John has put up that the reason for Brexit was rules on hidden money and Cayman Islands, etc., etc. It was the Anti-Tax Avoidance Directive 2018 for the European Union. You're absolutely correct.
That sent them screaming. You'll remember back at the time when the discussion for this took place. Do any of you remember the times when David Cameron was in with the EU, and what was happening was all the leaders of the EU were sort of like their body swerving, pushing away. The reason is because he was asking for Britain and all the Crown Protectorates to be exempted from that, right? And they just didn't. The other leaders didn't want to get into it because they knew the tax avoidance was costing their countries a lot of money.
Yep. So let's not get a wee bit off track here. We're talking about the Trump situation, right? And you were talking about Maggie and the selling half a housing stock, social housing stock. What effectively did that do, David?
Bloody hell, man. Let's take it from a human being point of view, right? If you were renting your property and you ended up out of a job, then what happened was that the government effectively paid the council what your rent was. You stayed in a home, right? When it all changed and you bought your council houses, what happened was now you had a mortgage. You lose your job, you don't have enough to pay it, and you're out.
But there was also more to that, David. Mm-hmm. As you and I both know, when you undertake to buy bricks and mortars and you tie yourself into a mortgage, you're not as agile as you were when we all had social housing. Because back in the day when we had diverse economies, if, let's say, there was a project in Scotland to build a new town, and we didn't have enough joiners, we didn't have plumbers, we didn't have brickies, then established towns that were running out of work down south, then you could up sticks and move.
Yeah.
You buy that house, you end your social mobility, or you restrain your social mobility.
Yeah.
You're tied to an area. It makes the economy less flexible.
That's right.
But of course, we've got to remember Maggie was wrecking the economy at the time. She only wanted a service economy. She didn't want a diverse economy like we have here in Scotland. One of the reasons why we do better here in Scotland, what they're doing down the road, is we have a much more diverse economy. We have a strong agricultural sector, we have strong resources, and we have a strong human sciences. We have a strong construction. We have a very strong banking sector. So we have a very diverse economy here, and we're an exporting nation. So the behaviour of our neighbours next door is especially hurting us.
Now, the thing that really hurts is the fact that the mortgage industry is now on its fucking knees.
That moves us on to the mortgage industry.
anybody that's sort of midway through selling their house and buying another one, my goodness me, what they must be going through. Now, because it's now common knowledge, that's like somebody puncturing another hole below the watermark. The fact that so many people know that there's a problem with the mortgage industry. The moment there's a problem in it, let's say, like my wee company, right? Let's say a wee bad story got about, I'd take the work, I'd get nothing, right? It's a bit like that. Because there's a bad news story going on about mortgages, and then you've got people like Martin Lewis that comes on that most people would fail their affordability check, people are not going to ask. People are just going, oh, we'll sit where we are. Simple as that.
Well, that's the other reason why the City of London, of course, is crapping itself. We'll go on to the mortgage market in a minute, and then we'll move on to the pensions. But that's why the City of London is crapping itself. Because I'm not going to sell this place and try and upscale.
Yeah.
You know? And if I'm a young family in a house that's getting too big for me, I know I'm not passing that affordability test, and I'm not upscaling. And with of course, house property is now expected to drop by 15% by the middle of next year, which is summertime is when houses are sold. Then people are going to find themselves in negative equity, and that's why so many mortgage products have been drawn from the marketplace. So Kirtang's intervention with the stamp duty failed miserably because of interest rates. It negated it. It's the same with the crashing of the pound. It should actually help our exporters, but as our major export market was Europe, and the costs of getting stuff into Europe, negative effect.
Yeah.
With the mortgage situation, negative effect. And they're all having an impact on the City of London, whose basic a product is
money.
Money.
Yeah. Selling people money. That's it. That's what they do. They don't manufacture a widget. They don't manufacture a car, a teaspoon, any of that at all. No, what they manufacture is money, and the various ways it can be moved around where they can make money from money.
Money.
Yeah.
And as nobody's got any money, Trussonomics doesn't work.
Yeah. That's right.
And that's why Kirtang's intervention into the housing market, that's the housing market that John's children, the London bus driver, can't get into because it's 420 grand for a basic house, new build in the southeast. He's affected the housing market. Rather than making the housing market more buoyant, what he did to the inflationary effect, therefore interest rates high.
Yeah.
So we're in the mortgage market, so we may as well talk about it while we're here.
Yeah.
And we have been. Affordability is a big thing. People are looking at their own incomes and saying, well, I can't afford to move, so I'm sticking with them up.
Yeah.
And the banks are looking at affordability and people's incomes and saying, we can't lend them. Therefore, the City of London suffers. Same with businesses.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a bit of business borrowing, David. You'll know a bit about this. Generally, businesses stop borrowing at 4% interest rate or less because when they get into the marketplace, that 4% is 6%.
Back in the day when I did borrow for at one time I employed 45 engineers, nice big premises and all the rest of it. We were doing work for the Ministry of Defence, football stadiums, you name it, right? Okay. And if I had to go to the bank and borrow, at that time, which was the mid-90s, five above base was about as far as the bank would take you. You might try and haggle them down because you could effectively get into a meeting with them and try and haggle them down. But generally it would come out at 5% above base, right? Anything over that, you would just go, forget it, don't be daft. The idea that it's going to cost too much, no, I'm not bothered, right? So money that you, Mr. Banker, could have made from me, from my idea, is now gone because I'm not prepared to put that idea into process until you're prepared to come to your senses and maybe make a little bit less, but at the end of the day, make more money, right?
But thanks to Brexit and where we are, what we're finding now is that the consumer hasn't got any money and isn't willing to borrow for big projects like buying a house or a car. And we find ourselves in a situation where the City of London is looking at the consumer who's got such a low wage and income, with rising inflation, rising interest rates, and they're saying, we're no lending either. So we basically have stagnation.
Yeah. And if you take 15% off of a £400,000 house, right? What's that? 10% is 40. So 15% is 60 grand. It's now worth 360. You might have a mortgage of 380, 300 on that property. You're in negative equity. So in other words, to get out of that house, you would have to supply your mortgage company with the difference.
Yep.
So you'd be and I remember when this used to happen. It did happen back in the past. People would just take their keys and post them through letterboxes. They wandered off into the distance, right? That's what negative equity does in reality. People just go, can't do it anymore, and they post the keys back through the post box. It's a completely sad situation. It's a situation that should not be happening under any circumstances whatsoever. Any government that does this to their people is absolutely the most cruel thing you could possibly imagine.
Now that brings us to the primary duty of government, David.
Yeah.
Protect the people.
Protect the people at all
They're
times.
not protecting the people. They have failed. They have misused their position in public office to enrich themselves.
Yeah.
Now, we're back to the days of the Whigs.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. What we got here? Let's move on to the pensions market and why the Bank of England had to intervene yesterday.
Yeah. Just before you put that up, David, I'll just give it a wee preface. Yesterday, you'll remember on the news, a bit of truth came out in the news. The story was that the Bank of England had to intervene. Otherwise, several pension companies, a lot of pension companies were going to go to the wall, right? Now we're going to explain to you the actual thinking behind that and all the rest of it. Carry on, David. Do what you're going to do.
The government's intervention in the pensions yesterday, as we'll see when we put the graph up, has got to do with what's called gilts and how hedge funds invest. Now, they buy a gilt at a certain amount and they expect to make X amount. It's a prefixed agreement when they buy that gilt. And that means that when interest rates go up, the value of that gilt drops, and it's got to the point where the value of the gilt was less than what they paid for the gilt, which meant the pension companies didn't have the money to pay you. So the Bank of England had to intervene. Up comes graph. On you go, David.
No, we've pulled out this. This is the most basic gilt. First thing I'll tell you is why they're called gilts. When they were first sold a long time ago, you actually end up with a piece of paper which was gilt edged. They called it a gilt, right? And you were effectively buying government debt. And the thing was that you held that gilt for a period of time. This is just a 1 year gilt, right? There's 2 year, 5 year, 10 year gilts, all the rest of it, right? But they're all following about the same shape of graph. If you go through each one of them, that it says, if you look at the top, there's 87 more instruments. That means there's 87 more products that you can buy. Okay, and the whole thing about the gilts is that you buy that for a period of time, and it should be considered to be stable, right? And if you look at this graph back over 5 years or whatever, then what happens is that you can see it's generally. So I'll do that. I'll actually show you what it looks like over 5 years, just to give you some kind of indication. You can see that there's a wee bit of growth and all the rest of it, right? And then you've got the where was that? 21st of March 20. That's where you had the drop. That was the beginning of going into lockdown, all right? Soon after, it went back up again, continued. So as you can see, it's a fairly stable product for like pension companies to buy into, where they can say, right, okay, at the end of 5 years, 10 years, we're going to get our money back plus, right? Plus a certain agreed percentage at that time, okay? However, at the beginning of this week, you had a bit of a tumble. In actual fact, you can see that from about October, I'll just get this for 1 year. There we go. You can see that from if I do back to October 21, right? It's still gone up.
That's the economy opening back up towards Christmas 21.
Yeah, it's got up to about £335 for a gilt, right? Now that's not the bid price or the offer price. That's just generally for putting a graph together, right? But as you can see, over the course of the year, it's just gone down and down and down and down. And then
what happened in January 2040? What happened on the 21st of January 2021?
21st of January.
31st of January 2021.
Oh, 2021. I don't know. I've got September 21 this graph.
Right.
I don't know. You're talking about the other graph we were looking at where that was Brexit.
It went down, started to recover a wee bit to where you're there at September. Yeah. And then Truss comes to power and boom.
Yeah, there it is there. And it got down yesterday to £43.19. So you can imagine a pension company that's holding a gilt that's cost them 335 quid, and yesterday it's down to 43 quid. No wonder the Bank of England ran in and tried to blooming buy all the gilts of people, right? And if you look at the top of this, you'll see that there's a bid and an offer price, okay? The offer price is £100.34. The bid price is £97.38. There's not much difference between them, but that's what the bank are paying. That's what the Bank of England are paying to get these gilts off of people, right? And people are obviously offloading. Also, at the same time as the Bank of England buying gilts, the other traders will be going, I wonder how much it'll actually go up with the effort of the Bank of England. And they're also buying. Yeah, they're in competition with the Bank of England in terms of doing this because they see it as a way to make money, right? So, just thought we'd give you the hard basis as to why the Bank of England ran in yesterday and went, oh, bloody hell, and started buying as quick as they can. If I break that down into just today, right, you can see the efforts that the Bank of England made, right? You see where they've been pushing money in. Don't forget, the effect on the graph, it lags a bit. So they've got to do something and then wait and see what it gets to, right? They managed to get up to 96 and then it started dropping off again, right? So so what they've done is they've watched to see if that's solid. Yes, it is solid, right? Do more effort, and that's then they've got it back up to 97.40. But considering it was £334.90 or whatever it was, just late on last year, my goodness me, what a drop, what a drop. And that to me says everything that I need to know. We now have a situation where the United Kingdom economy is in tatters. It's in absolute tatters. It hasn't hit people. It hasn't hit people what's going to happen, right? Because it hasn't hit their front doorstep yet. But it will. I assure you, it will. People have been in a situation where, for example, they've got a mortgage and it's been fixed, and they're coming to the end of that fix now, oh, blooming it, hang on, Genie, I need to contact the bank to see if we can get another fixed term. And all of a sudden they fail the affordability check. And that will happen throughout the UK. That's not limited to Scotland. It's not limited to just England. It's everywhere. Every part of the United Kingdom, there'll be people put in that position. What do they do then? They've now got a mortgage that they cannot afford. What happens to people that have a mortgage that they cannot afford? Well, they can try contacting the council or a housing association saying, if you get anywhere for rent, we'll flog this lump of bricks and mortar we've got for what we can get for it, and we'll use that for rental, right? But to be honest with you, see when enough people flood into that marketplace, there's not enough houses to go around. That's it.
And it also is an inflationary pressure, because what happens is the rents go up.
Yes, that's right. Because it's a burgeoning market, the actual the rented housing market, the people that own the properties go, I can make a bit of money here. So it's supply and demand. It's the old thing of supply and demand. If the demand's there, they can charge a bit more. Still get people to take the houses, right? Well,
as you know, David, these days, I mean, for a while there, it was cheaper to get a mortgage than it was to go into private rental.
Yeah. David, can you pull the graph out of the way?
Pull the graph out of the way.
Yeah.
How long are we in? 38 minutes in.
Yeah.
So, we find ourselves in a situation where it doesn't look good. We're in a shrinking economy. The pound's bombed, which should be good for exporters, but because of the impositions that we've put on ourselves, there's no gain to the market.
Yeah.
And that market has shrunk.
Yeah.
The city has run out of people to lend to, so therefore the city of London is still functioning.
Yeah, businesses are not borrowing. They're going, we'll just hang fire. We'll just hold the ground we've got at the moment and see if we need to drag our horns in, because that's what a lot of businesses do as well. What they'll do is they'll look at if they can manage to implode a little bit and still keep going, keep the core going, right? If they can't, then obviously it's finito.
You know, with the energy crisis and the contraction in the market, we are seeing it here in Scotland, no doubt. It's happening right across these islands. We're finding that businesses are reducing working hours to cut costs on the energy, or they're basically looking at it and saying, shutting my doors.
Yeah.
I'm getting out the now before I can't afford to, before I'm bankrupt.
Yeah, at some point, every business owner has got to look at the investment that they've made, personal investment, right? Okay, you might have not me, I haven't done it, but let's say somebody bought a wee factory, actually bought, and they put their own house on the line to the bank to give them that borrow to buy that factory, right? There comes a point when every business owner is going to make that awful decision of, do I keep pouring money into it when I think it's going to fail, or do I pull out now and manage to retain something, anything, you know?
I want to address this one from James Carpenter, who says the challenge for the independence case is that all the pitfalls of Brexit apply to the case for independence, but more so, no, it doesn't. For a start, James, let me explain this for those who don't quite understand it. We're talking about this push that they talk about England taking 60% of our exports. That's because England needs those exports.
Yeah, but it's not as high as that.
That's not going to be, but hold on, it doesn't actually stop there. Most of it's bought by businesses in England, then goes forward onto other markets. It's called wholesale, and wholesalers buy here in Scotland, and they sell it either retail or internationally. Okay, but let me explain it for the people who don't quite grasp the concept. The reason why they take 60% of their exports is because they have a need. And that need doesn't change the day after independence, and it doesn't change at all. Because the cheapest place, even with trade tariffs, for them to get it is from us, because they have a land border with us, and they take 60% of what we overproduce because they have a need. The reason for us overproducing is because they have a need. Anybody that doesn't understand that doesn't understand the concept of economics. You'd be as well in fucking number 10 with Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng. Wow! Talk about, you'd be as well be a London bloody bus driver.
Sorry, John.
Wow! I've seen this repeatedly. Those stink, poor serfs down that road will crawl up this road on broken glass to get access to our food, our drink, our water, our electricity, our gas, our oil. Because we have the finest product on the planet.
Yeah.
and they have a need, and they get it at a decent price for us.
Yeah, the most important thing is if you just take something as basic as water, right? We know that water flows from Scotland, goes down to England, right? It is required. That means that the water companies are getting their product free of charge. Well, fine, that's okay. When we do go independent, what we'll do is we'll charge a pound a litre. That's a
but there's also the natural secrets for Scotland to England in the water table because we're higher up.
That's right.
It's just their shite water companies won't fix the pipes, so the water that seeps downhill keeps running downhill. They can't utilise it.
It's such an awful shame that the water companies have been allowed to do what they've done. They haven't built more reservoirs. In actual fact, there's enough mine workings and all the rest of it in England to actually produce aquifers where they're hidden from sight, but they're massive repositories of water, and they're just not doing that. And a lot of England sits on top of limestone. So what happens is the water either runs directly off the top if it's been very, very dry, or it just runs straight through, right down to way down subterranean levels. And an aquifer would be so easy. There's the big Anne Handrett mine that runs from Teesside up to Durham. That's massive. That is huge. They were thinking of putting the nuclear waste into that. It's so deep down and it's so large. So, and I remember that when I lived there. But anyway, the idea that Scotland is going to be in a situation that Brexit, the same as Brexit, no, it's not. In actual fact, what we're going to do is we're going to do the most important thing, is we're going to open 27 fucking gates all at the same time.
Yes.
And we're going to take our marketplace from 50 million people up to 450 million. And if England still need our product, then that's 500 million.
And they will still need our product. That's the point I'm trying to make. The reason why England buys up so much of our excess, and the reason why we overproduce is there's not that many. We've got plenty of land, plenty of resources, and they have a need. That need doesn't change after independence.
That's right.
There might be slight trade tariffs on it, but it's still going to be cheaper than bringing it in for Europe because you've got a land bridge.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And apart from that, the products we produce to sell are tailored to their needs.
Yeah, just to add to what Sheena's saying, Sheena Glass says, scientific experts keep saying England will run out of water within 30 years, with more water in Loch Ness than all of England combined. Right, in actual fact, we have 90% of all the potable water in the United Kingdom.
That's right.
Fresh
water lochs.
Yeah. Okay.
Never mind subterranean, never mind any of the rest. We're just talking about surface water here. We'll get 32,000 fresh water lochs. Yeah,
all right. You've got to look at it practically. We didn't go out and build those. Those were already there, and it's because of the geology of Scotland, right? Fair enough. But to be honest with you, if somebody comes along and gives you 100 quid at a bus stop, you say, thanks very much. And if another guy walks along and says, can I have that 100 quid? You say, bugger off. So we're in a lucky situation. We've got all this water. So at the end of the day, we go independent. Yeah, we'll of course we'll help out. Do you think we're going to turn our backs on the people of England? What a rotten thing to do.
No, there's a lot of people in England who would turn their back on us because they're very childish and they don't really have much in the way of.
We're not, and we wouldn't turn our backs on them because I've got family down there and I've got good mates down there, and I wouldn't have that happen to any of them.
I shouldn't generalise them, but I'm talking about the elite down there. You know, the inbreds, the ones that the London bus drivers pay homage to. Anyway, Joe Thompson put up one. What currency are you going to use when Scotland goes independent? Well, obviously, Jock will talk about this. We're going to have to build them out. We're going to have to stay sterlinised for a small period of time till they find a bit of stability, and then we withdraw from the sterling zone. Because if we just withdraw from the sterling zone, It's Scotland's assets, as each of the leaders down there have now admitted, which is keeping the UK afloat. And that includes Starmer and his big speech at the weekend. We was talking about a green oasis and things like that. He was talking about Scotland and raping Scotland's resources, which brings us on to Starmer, because we haven't got long to go. It brings us on to Starmer and the pish he was peddling to the English people. Would you like to explain it, David, or would you like me to explain it?
How much pish can I cover in the next 10 minutes or next 5 minutes, right? Basically, the big idea that they came out with, the really, really big idea, and they were gushing about it, was producing an energy company to actually produce energy and create a market for all your ordinary people to buy from, right? On the face of it, great idea, but he's got all sorts stacked against him, right? First off, the initial expenditure just to set up is £65 billion. That's when the Sky reporter said to them, how much will this cost? Eventually managed to tie them down. Somebody came away with the initial cost being £65 billion, right? Where are they going to get that £65 billion from? Well, at the moment, looking at the markets, they might give them enough money for a second-hand escort, right? Or a Ford Cortina. That, really, the other way they could go is they could ask the Bank of England to manufacture some money, right? In other words, do a form of quantitative easing for the UK, right? Which they do, which I've done in the past, right? But the problem is that the Bank of England are now in the Weimar Republic territory. They're getting to the point where it's going to turn into hyperinflation, and it doesn't matter what they do, how much money they pump into it, it's still going to continue. The inflation is going up, but things like gilts are going down. But the most important thing is the inflation is going up the way, and eventually it takes a life of its own, and it starts going sky high. That's the Weimar Republic. Read about it, Google it. I do recommend that everybody knows about the Weimar Republic, right?
He takes wheelbarrows of cash to the supermarket to get a loaf.
Yeah, we've covered them borrowing the money. We've covered them getting the money from the Bank of England. It's no happening.
Now let's look at current fiscal position here, right?
Yeah.
Kwasi Kwarteng has just cut taxes by 45 billion and given it to the rich, right? How much wriggle room was there in the Exchequer because of the tax take?
Yeah.
30 billion. So we're now 15 billion in negative territory.
Right. Yeah.
They only had 30 billion. In fact, it was well trumpeted right through the media. There's only 30 billion of wriggle room in the tax take. And Kwasi cuts by 45.
Yeah.
That's the reason why the bank's having to step in.
Yeah.
And print more money. And as we've already explained, each time you print around the quantitative easing, you undervalue the currency that's already existing.
Yeah.
So
the other thing they could do is they could go to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. The shortest email in the planet Earth, the history of the planet Earth, was dead simple. It said IMF WTF, right? What the and that's what the IMF said about the kamikaze kids blooming antics with the market, what he's been doing, right? So it doesn't look like, without a lot of change, that the IMF would be prepared to even stump up part of the money. And I mean, Labour would have to show a sufficient enough change in management standards and all the rest of it, and possibly trying to talk to the EU about going back into the single market and the customs union as well, which on the face of it, Starmer doesn't want to do, but I think he may be forced to. But whether he could get back into it, I don't know.
You and I watched a video yesterday when we were having a real chat. A couple of mandarins, top mandarins for the civil service.
Gobbledygook speak. Mandarin stands for civil service chiefs that are now retired. So a mandarin is someone that was very, very high up, very prominent in the civil service, and is now retired and is able to now talk.
These two guys were permanent secretaries. One was a permanent secretary to the Treasury for many years. And they were just talking about it, and they were saying the problem with Brexit is Brexit, and they're going to have to go back in. And one of the stipulations they reckon the EU will be is a change of voting system doing that. They would need to go to something like proportional representation.
No, make them suffer single transferable vote, please.
Single transferable vote, yes. Aye. Sounds like a plan, David. We're not here to talk about the complications of voting system today. We're here to talk about the stupidity of Trussonomics. But we're getting near the point where we've done well today. We managed to ignore John and his nonsense today, you know.
Yeah, John, nothing personal, but you keep leading us on a different direction. And to be honest with you, we've got a job to do here, trying to pass information to people, and we don't really want to offend anybody down the road. Sometimes it's unavoidable when you're talking, real information. You're saying to people in England, "Come on, guys, get your heads together. What are you doing?
We've only got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to have a laugh. Stop going on about weak pounds. Remember the British Empire and the railways of colonial India. We ruled much of the world. The reason why you don't rule fuck all anywhere, Daphne, is because your heat's still up your arse and living in the past. But hey, that's the last year.
That empire.
Hey, have a nice day, John. Hey, where are we? I'm going to stick you in a naughty step. Nonsense averted today, folks. John's on the naughty step. Listen, I know it's pretty bleak out there, folks, but I hope you've enjoyed it. We're not quite finished yet right now.
Forewarned is forearmed. If you start to individually keeping an eye on this stuff, right? The gilts market, that's a good one to watch. That's a good indicator of what's actually happening. All right.
I'm on my day off, David, so I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes just having fun. All right.
Cool, right?
Hey, Empire biscuits, all you have.
I like Empire biscuits. Oh dear.
Oh, here's more nonsense for you. We may as well have more nonsense. Unfortunately, in 2021-22, the sum of Scotland's tax revenues was 73 billion, while our expenditure was 97 billion. That's an issue. But you've got to remember, we're not counting import-export taxes. We're not talking about alcohol duty here. We're not talking about tobacco duty here. We're not talking about fuel duty here. All these things that don't come back, James. If you don't understand the economics of the situation that Scotland's in, please refrain from making silly statements. We reserve that for John in London.
Listen, John, I've got a tiny wee company. I mean, really, really small company, right? I still pay thousands in corporation tax.
I never mentioned corporation tax, David.
Does it ever turn up on GER, the government expenditure revenue?
How do people know?
It just goes to the bank over in London.
How do people get to be so ill-informed?
I don't know.
Oh, of course, the Pravda. We haven't spoken about the Pravda. Let's finish with
it's okay. I've been deeply under the hood of this particular engine since 2010. Somewhere around about 2010.
No, I don't think it was.
And then the independence campaign in 2012, May 2012, and I really, really got going. And this one here, I don't know what I said to him, but he suddenly became a bright spark in every way you could possibly imagine. You know what I mean? So
no, what you said is, David, you're right, but you have to be able to prove it. So I had to go and fucking learn it. So I had to spend years, and I've never stopped. There's no day goes by when I'm not buried deep in a PDF file of one thing after
another. The amount I've written over the years, I could have done 7 or 8 PhDs easily, right?
Oh, Christ, because I've done a few myself. Jock says he's no well informed, he's a troll. Listen, listen, no, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. He's probably reading straight off the Unionist textbook, which is theirs. As we know, Professor Richard Murphy he describes it as crap. 183 guesstimations, and you can just pluck them out of the air because nobody knows exactly how much fat is Scottish people pint. Nobody knows how much alcohol duties are raised for Scotland because it's all hidden. It's all guesstimates. Nobody knows how much fuel duty is raised in Scotland. Nobody knows how much tobacco duty is raised in Scotland. Nobody knows how much import and export tax is raised in Scotland because although HMRC's got a rough idea, what they do is they just take it and shove it in the fucking bin and make it up as they go along, which is exactly what Professor Richard Murphy tells us. I was interested in the video he put out yesterday telling us to put our jackets on and run like fuck. England's knackered.
What I would love to do, James, is I would love to get somebody. I'm not talking about a politician like the Treasury Secretary or something like that, but actual high-level civil servant from the Treasury in front of me, and I'd love to say, "You prove everything that you say." Because at the moment, all it is an act of creative accountancy, and you know it is.
Should we? I wonder if we can manage to get a grip of John McCrone. Will we give it a go?
Hang on a second. I've got a cup and a Ouija board here somewhere. He's dead, isn't he?
No, I don't think so. I think McCrone's still alive.
Anyway, well, I've had a dash good time today, I must admit. But giving you some of the bad news is not good. But yet again, as I keep on saying to you, forewarned is forearmed. Start keeping an eye on these things yourselves. All right.
As I always say, your search engine's your friend.
Yeah, that's right. And don't just rely on one thing to help make your mind up. Look for several sources of the same thing. Somewhere in there lies the truth, or part of the truth. It's not always lies. It isn't always lies, but in there somewhere you'll find the truth if you keep on looking. Just please do keep looking.
And it does take time, folks. It takes an awful lot of time.
Yeah.
There's no point kidding on about it. David and I have just told you, I've been at this for 2012. You and I hooked up, I think it was.
That's right. Yeah.
So 10 years, a decade of study.
And I can tell you, I was just as ugly then as I am now. That's what I do.
Right, listen, folks, I hope you found it entertaining. We hope you found it informative. Few figures have been all right, but there's only one thing left to say, and that is...
Bye, David.
Bye, David.